Welcome to another edition of Tree Service Marketing Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Wesley Smith, here with treeservicedigital.com. And got a special guest today on in the UK. If you're on YouTube and you're watching this, like and subscribe to our channel. Comment below as we talk. If you have anything you want to share or add value for, it'd be great. If you're on the podcast, like and subscribe to our podcast. We're on all the major podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Google, all of them. You name it, your favorite ones, we're on there. And this is another series of our interviews with experts here in the tree care industry. And Kieran Steele with ArbWorks in the UK is on with us today to share his story in the tree service business. Kieran, thanks for joining and sharing your story, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. I know we got a little time zone difference there. You're in the UK, we're in the US. So you guys are about 7 p.m. So thanks for hanging around to do this. I appreciate you offering to do it and share your story. So how did you get started in the tree service business? How long have you been doing it?
Been doing it about 10, 11 years now, something like that, and got started through rock climbing, essentially. Quite enjoyed rock climbing when I was in and out of school at a younger age, and migrated into looking for ways I can get paid for climbing, essentially. So quickly got hooked on all the gear, the harnesses, ropes, carabiners, equipment, all of that sort of stuff, and kind of evolved into what I do now, I suppose.
That's great, man. You know, the extent of my rock climbing career was we have a couple of gyms here in the US. There's one called Lifetime Fitness, and they've got
Yeah,
a big rock climbing wall that's right next to the basketball courts. And when I first joined it, I did it a few times. You know, you put the harness on, you put the buckles and everything else, and you could climb all the way up that wall. But man, you start getting those ibby jibbies, you know, when you get a little higher up there, because if you come down, they have a soft landing for you if you did fall, but that was about the extent of mine. So you kind of carried it over into something that made sense, right? In the tree work.
yeah, kind of carried it over into a way that you can get paid for it quite well, not for rock climbing, but a way you can get paid for climbing on a daily basis, I suppose. Obviously a lot of it's more ground based as well, but obviously most people get into tree work for the climbing anyway, I think.
Yeah, it's such a great workout, man. It's just a good testament of hand-eye coordination, foot coordination, all that stuff. When did you get started in the tree service business? Like how long ago? And like when did you start your company?
Um,
All that stuff.
business wise, I'd say I've been doing tree work in general like 10, 11 years now. Business wise was pretty quick after I passed my qualifications. Not so much in what I do today now, but I quickly picked up the odd Saturday job here and there, which was like my private work, essentially. My odd job I could do on the side. Um, just very easy stuff at first, little hedge trimming, bits and bobs, stuff like that. And then I've never really paid for advertisement or anything of that nature. I've always just kind of the jobs just snowballed. And it's taken a long time, like 10 years of snowballing jobs from customer to customer. But I'm kind of at the point now where I do my own work for 3 days a week, and then I subcontract climb for the rest, basically.
I see. I see. Yeah, it's a good tip there. Everybody watching, if you're maybe just getting started or you're thinking about getting into tree service business, or maybe you're working for another tree service company, could be a conflict of interest if you're doing that. But what he said there was a good
Yeah,
point, and that is that if you started on the side, it's a lot less risky, right? So if you already have a full-time job and you
yeah,
got your income coming in, if you started on the side, you kind of get your feet wet with the business, you learn it on the side, prove that you can make income with it, and then from there
definitely.
builds up, you can kind of go full time, right?
Definitely. I mean, I started with just a hedge cutter, something cheap, secondhand. It was probably broken, and I fixed it to make it work. And that was kind of all you needed, really, just to get going. That and like a big dumpy bag to put the waste in. Um, and yeah, that was all I really needed to get going and just do very small gardening work on the side. And you mentioned conflict of interest for the firm you may be working for. In my experience and the type of jobs that I was taking on, I was never really a threat to the main business I was working for. It was only ever a small job on the side here, like once a Saturday, really. So I worked most weekends just doing that, and small jobs pick up here and there, and they recommend you to that friend, that neighbor. And as I said, I've never really paid for advertisement. I've always just done that, and there's certainly quicker ways of building the business faster. I think if I did pay for advertisement, I would be maybe further along in my business, so to speak, and maybe doing less subcontracting work. But it's been very natural in the way that it's grown and snowballed on.
Well, it sounds like you're doing the right thing. In order to get referrals and grow your business organically like that, you got to be doing good work and getting good reviews and stuff like that. And it testament on your Google business profile. You got great reviews, high rating. So that's always the number
Yeah,
one thing. If you can continue to work on that, it'll literally build itself. The business will start building, and eventually, you'll have a lot of work coming in. And once you hire a lot of people to start doing the work, then you'll need to usually at that point start the marketing full time because you want to make sure
yeah,
everybody stays busy, right? And things like that. But
yeah,
the way
exactly.
you're doing it
So
now is great. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I think that once if I've got more mouths to feed as such, then I'd be relying on those customers more, and I think I'd have to drive that a bit harder. But certainly, at least while I'm just doing it, I mean, even now, still part time really, and doing subcontracting climbing on the side, it's it's keeping me busy enough to. I mean, I've got staff on. I use subcontractors for myself as well for the 3 days a week for myself, but I don't employ anybody yet, and I don't need to advertise yet either.
Tell us a little bit about that transitional period when you were still working for the firm, the company you worked for before to get your experience in tree service and
Yeah,
you branching out on your own. Like, how long was that dual work environment for you?
between working weekends plus full time at a company, um, that probably went on for a good 5 6 years, something like that. Between and I just work the weekends, and I'd occasionally be so busy that it's all well and good booking in just the weekends or just usually just a Saturday, and even that time frame would soon stack up, and I'd be telling customers that I can't get to them for another month, and then at that point they're thinking, oh, I really need this done. I'm gonna have to look elsewhere. Sorry, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to lose the customer. I'll do it Sunday as well, and then I'm working. It's essentially at that point 2 weeks straight before I get the next Sunday off again. Um, that happened a few times, and then I'm like, look, I'm gonna have to drop my Monday for the larger firm, and then sooner or later I'm in the same position again. Another year down the line, I'm in the same position again where I'm like, oh, I'm working Saturday, Sunday, and Monday for myself now. Gonna have to drop the Tuesday as well. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I'm got a log business on the side as well, so I'm splitting logs in the evenings and doing that because I can't get out doing tree work at night time basically, but I can go down my yard and do log splitting in the evening. It's just another means to kind of grow that business separately as well. Um, yeah, and just keeping on top of it and keeping customers happy and not giving them too much of a lead time either. That was the hardest thing. As soon as I start to work more than 2 weeks in a row, it's too much for me and too much for the family as well.
Yeah, it's a juggling act for a while because you start getting these clients and they need you, right? They want you to come out and do their work, but that full-time job is still getting in the way, right? So it's like, okay,
Yeah,
once you can finally branch out and just start doing it full time, it is a leap of faith. You do have to take a leap of faith. And I think it's a smart decision. It's one of those like educated decisions that you have to make in any business when you start it. It's like once you have enough demand there and enough referral
yeah,
business, repeat business, you kind of just, I think intuitively, internally know, okay, now's the time to do it, right? It kind of just hits you at one
yeah,
day, right, to do it.
yeah. And certainly, I was building the client base up to the Saturdays and Sundays before I had to take that leap of faith. So I still felt set fairly safe in doing that. I wasn't like just taking that leap of faith with nobody there, with no demand. Um, so building the Saturdays and Sundays up, the customers coming in for a good 3 4 years before I was relying on them, so to speak, either, which was quite nice. And even when I took the initial jump to do the 3 days for myself, I dropped the larger firm as a whole anyway, and then just took up subcontract climbing. So I wasn't guaranteed for a certain firm for the whole rest of the week. Then I was booking in subcontracting climbing for lots of other different firms on the other days. So so I wasn't relying on them either then, and I could still say that I can't book that Friday, say because I've got my own customer that needs me. So then I've been doing that for a long time as well.
Awesome. So you are doing kind of full service tree service right now, like tree trimming, tree pruning, tree removal,
Yeah,
all that type of thing.
anything and everything.
Hmm.
We dabble in fencing as well, but I try and avoid it if I can. It's not my cup of tea. It's just I've got staff that can do it, so it seems wrong to deny the work basically. But yeah, we do absolutely anything and everything. I try and avoid stump grinding as well if I can help it, but if the job really requires it, then it's just one of those things you got to do if you like it or not.
Yeah, we've got a few clients that they'll do that in-house once they get a certain size because they'll get that stump grinding equipment. And they
Yeah,
got the new, the new remote control ones now. They just go out there and just, just go right through the stumps. But I think a lot of times, most clients, most tree service companies, they'll subcontract out the stump grinding work for a good number of years before they'll ever bring that in.
yeah, yeah.
So
So certainly, if I can continue to do that for as long as I can, I don't enjoy stump grinding at all. It's quite a slow process, and there's no getting good at it. I find you can be as good as you get, and it's still relying on the speed of the machine. Um, it's just yeah, it's quite slow and tedious in my opinion.
yeah, yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about ArbWorks and your guys' kind of target customer. Are you guys focusing on residential or commercial or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. I dabble in more commercial work as well. Um, currently do so I work Saturdays for myself as well. So the beginning of the week and a Saturday for ArbWorks, and then commercial work subcontracted through ArbWorks as well for the other 3 days a week. So I'm still not letting go of my Saturday working just yet. The commercial stuff's quite good though because reliable income. They get me in reliably every single week for the same amount of work. And I quite enjoy it as well because it's a chance to do larger work with larger machinery, stuff that I don't have, the tractors, harvesters, larger equipment that I just don't have. And it's going to be a long time before I can get anything like that as well. And then my target customer is usually probably well, most of my customers are more elderly.
Hmm.
So I've got a lot of hedge trimming stuff just from kind of snowballing from doing that since I started, really. A lot of hedge trimming customers, a lot of small garden maintenance type stuff, fruit tree pruning, that sort of thing. And then I have other firms that usually contact me for more elaborate rigging climbing jobs.
That's great. Yeah, it's anybody listening, if you get any value out of this video, like and subscribe, or just leave us a comment really quick if you have any questions for Kieran or I or anything like that. I really like this type of conversation because it just shows hard work pays off. And whenever when you're thinking about starting your own business, if even if it's not in the same field that you're in now, but if you're in a business such as tree service work or whatever, and you want to start your own tree service business, then you need to kind of figure out those next steps. And most of the time that entails working on the side for a good number of months or years before you get that ramped up. And so you're pulling double time. Essentially, you're working around the clock, but you're also hustling and making extra money. So at first it turns into a side hustle where you're making
Yeah,
money on the side, doing extra work, making some extra money like as a 1099 contractor. And it pivots into the demand build so high if you're doing the right thing that really essentially is the launching pad for your new business. And that's when you can go out full time. So Kieran's a testament of that. I've done that twice. So both the businesses that I've created and ran have started, they were side hustles to begin with, right? Because honestly, that's the least risky way to start a business. A lot of people feel like a business is risky to start, and it can be, right? If you go out there and you just stop in your tracks what you're doing right now and then go, okay, I'm in business tomorrow, and you start it and you don't have any customers, that is risky. But if you build it on the side as a side hustle first, then it's a lot less risky and it can kind of smooth out the process into your new business endeavor, right? And that's kind of what you did, Kieran. You kind of just you
exactly.
launched off, and it's been kind of a steady process since you did that, right?
Exactly. I'm kind of at the point now where I'm bringing on staff, and that's harder to let go now, I find, because I've been the guy there doing it pretty much by myself since I started. Now bringing staff in is so much harder to delegate that work now.
That's a whole nother set of skills, they say, right?
Yeah,
And I've been there with you. So I'm in the same boat. So when I first started, I had clients, they onboarded with me. My team I took care of them. I responded to them. I communicated with them. And I have a lot of pride in that and giving everybody the right
yeah,
answers and showing everybody what to expect. And yeah, when you start building your team, it does require patience and a lot of training and just making sure that everybody kind of knows the process to your business. But creating those standard like core values and mission statement and things like that for your
yeah,
company go a long way, with what people do and expect, as a team member.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
that's good. That's awesome, man. Well, cool. So you've got your business going now, and you're relying mostly on word of mouth marketing. But do you have like signs on your trucks and things like that where people know who you are when you're coming down the road?
Yeah, the truck's sign written, but they have to be removable for the larger contract work as well.
Hmm.
Just because they other firms getting me in with the vehicle and my equipment, so they have to be removable. Um, so kind of it, really. I put out leaflets every now and again when things get quiet, but
Hmm.
very rarely. And I literally just rely on word of mouth for that. And I'm almost at the point now where I've got to drop another contracted day to pick up more word of mouth jobs.
Hmm.
It just snowballs, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, you got okay, so you've already done a lot of good things, foundational things for your marketing. So you've got your Google business profile set up, right?
Yeah,
That's your Google map listing. You got a lot of reviews on it. That's awesome. You've got a website, right? So that's
yeah,
good. And you probably have business cards that you're handing out all the time, maybe.
yeah. So the
Yeah.
business cards, leaflets, they go out.
Hmm.
Obviously, when clients are asking for them, or if they want to recommend me, I always leave a business card and leaflet behind. Then we
Hmm.
do a leaflet drop essentially when things get a little bit quieter, usually through the winter. We haven't had to this year yet.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's in terms of advertisement, that's kind of it. It's just snowballed, and it's taken a long time, but it's got to the point where the you get a better quality of customer, in my opinion, from working with other people that have just pumped into advertising. In my opinion, it's been the type of customer that attracts is the type of customer that's just looking for the best price for work, which is nothing wrong with that.
Hmm.
But the type of customers that I tend to attract with word of mouth is customers that want to phone in just to kind of check up on you almost. It's almost a little bit too personal. Um, I'm getting married and they're like, oh, how was the wedding day kind of thing. They're almost like extended family at this point. It's a bit
Yeah, yeah.
much sometimes.
Well, that's true. That's good. That means you're building great relationships out there, and that's kind of the foundation of it, really blossoming. And now, when you say leave out, put out those leaflets, is that like a direct mail, or are you handing them out, like putting them door to door?
I've done both. I've didn't want to pay the fee essentially to have other external company to do that
Hmm.
at first. So I've done both. I've been out on quiet days where I've had no work, and I've gone out and handed them out personally myself as well,
Hmm.
and targeted specific areas that I wanted to build more relationships in. And then other times when I've been busy but not as busy I'd like, then I have paid for them to go out as well.
That's awesome. Good, man. So that's good. So you kind of you're doing the foundational elements of the marketing. Are any yard signs or anything like that you're putting out?
No, yeah, again, just mainly relying on word of mouth. I don't put up any larger signs in people's gardens or anything like
Yeah, it's one of those
that.
things like here in the States, different local governments, local city governments, and places like that. Some places don't care if you put the yard signs out. Other
Yeah,
places they will fine you. So you have to be careful with
yeah,
where you're putting those things out for sure.
yeah,
But yeah, all of it kind of just works and kind of builds that momentum, right? So you're kind of building those foundational elements. That's awesome. Starting to
yeah,
hire, crew members and employees and things like that. So that's great. That's just building organically, building the way you want it. And like they say, like nothing worthwhile is built in a day. You know what I'm saying? It takes a while,
yeah,
and you're putting out the right type of energy, I think, and effort, and it all kind of comes back to you in circles. So I think
yeah,
what you're
definitely.
doing is good. And you kind of can feel that, right? You do the right thing, people refer you, they give you good reviews, and the business just grows organically
Yeah,
in the first years. Yeah.
definitely.
Hmm. Awesome, man. Well, what's next for ArbWorks and Kieran, the CEO there? What are you guys doing next?
Um, Probably staff. I'd like to get two members of staff this year, two reliable, good members of staff this year. If I can do that, then I can start putting together them as a separate team, and then that way, then I've got myself and my current colleague, and then another team that can go out and tackle maybe more domestic work or contracted work, depending on what's busier at the time. Essentially, if I can kind of get that cracked, then I'd be in a pretty good place for next year. I'd like to think.
That's great, man. Yeah, it sounds like it. You just kind of continue to expand, smallly, slowly but surely, putting those team members in place. Now,
Yeah.
any kind of arborist certifications or like the desire to go into like the tree healthcare or plant healthcare space as well in the future?
So in the UK, we have ARB approved. It
Hmm.
might be something to look at a later date, but at the moment, for the type of customer that I attract anyway, it's not something that I'd be interested in at the moment. Um, I think, at least for the ARB approved certification in the UK, I think that's more for larger companies taking on more like building site contracting work and councils type stuff. And I'm nowhere near capable of fulfilling that desire anyway. So it's
Yeah.
not something I'd like to pay for at the moment to have that certification.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of our clients, some of them start with the tree service business and a lot of them stay there. And then other ones branch out and they start another kind of segment of the business where they're helping people, with plant health care, fertilization of the trees, getting insects and stuff out of the trees and things like that with pests and stuff. So, yeah, just checking to see if that's something you guys, is that kind of big in the UK as well? It's really growing here rapidly.
Not so much. The only kind of larger certification. So I mean, obviously we're fully qualified and fully certified in it as a company,
Hmm.
but most, I'd say 95% of companies are that in the UK anyway. So then the next step further than that is Arb approved, an Arb
Mm.
approved company. And as I say, that's just for larger, well, I'm not if certainly smaller companies could get it, but is it justified then? I suppose it's quite a lot to maintain, and it
Mhm.
needs to be for the larger contracts. Really, they need people that actually need it for you to do the work.
Sure. Yeah. Right time, right place. Right. So,
Yeah,
yeah, if that happens in the future, great. If not, it sounds like you're going on a great path already. Well, maybe parting words? I want to be respectful of your time too, because I know you've had a long day probably at work as well. And thanks for sharing your story and kind of how you bootstrapped your business there, got it going and got it to where it is today. Like any words of wisdom for people maybe just getting started out in the tree service business, looking to maybe start their company, or maybe they just started their company? Maybe words of encouragement or anything like that that kind of kept you going and got you the results you got today?
yeah. I mean, through my experience, I'd say that when you do decide that you're gonna leave the full time employment role, start to pick up subcontracting work first, and then go from there. And you got to be learning from everybody that you're working for that what the prices that they're putting in for jobs, so you can kind of be competitive in that market as well, and then starting to starting to attract the right customer from there on out, really. So you can build that and get more of your own work in that's small and easily attainable, and then you can kind of grow from there. If you pick up, I mean, as you said at the beginning, I just picked up a hedge cutter and started doing very small, almost gardening work, really, because that was the equipment that I could afford at the time from leaving a full time role somewhere else. And the Saturdays and the evenings and all that really kind of count to the bigger picture, especially when you're starting. I wouldn't have been able to do it without it at all.
That's great, man. Well, thanks for sharing that. Yeah. And I think everybody kind of starts where they're at, and if you decide you want to start that business, you just, I think doing it on the side's a little bit less risky. So, and I also want to say thanks for joining us. I think you're the first podcast guest we've had in the UK. I believe we had somebody in Australia either 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, something like that. So you're the first one in the UK. So thanks for hopping on, man, and sharing your story. I
No
know
worries.
you're busy, and I appreciate your time. Well, if you guys are still on or if you're on the YouTube channel, like and subscribe to our channel. We got plenty more of these expert interviews coming up. If you're on the podcast, like and subscribe to our podcast. And we got plenty more on the docket ready to do in the coming weeks. So thanks for your time, Kieran. Appreciate it. Guys, go check out ArbWorks in the UK, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks so much.